Well, good morning. It's Christmas Day 2020, hey? And a really happy Christmas to you and welcome to County's Life Connect. I'm absolutely thrilled that you've been able to join me this morning. And I hope the Santa's come to you. As you can see, he didn't bring me much. My stockings are looking a little bit empty today. But, you know, we live in hope, don't we? More than expectation, I think, on this occasion. But it is Christmas Day, and I think we'd probably all say it's a Christmas Day unlike any of us have probably experienced at all in our lifetime. You know, it's the first time, certainly for myself, that I've not had all our UK Cracknell family gathering at Christmas time, either on Christmas Day or Boxing Day. And I suspect you're probably the same. You know, we just got a couple of family members going to be with us today. So it's going to be a very strange Christmas, I think, for us all. But you know, in the midst of all this strangeness, which may feel a little bit gloomy, may feel a little bit downbeat, there are some positives in this. You know, it gives us, one in particular, we've got less distractions, and it gives us more time to reflect on the significance of Christmas. Actually, what's Christmas all about, rather than get caught up in all the trappings and all the excitement and all the people and all the presents and all the parties and all the food and all the kind of stuff that goes on. It gives us a chance just to pause for this Christmas at least and reflect upon it. And I want us just to spend a few minutes looking at a summary that John, one of Jesus' closest and most loved disciples, made as he summarized in John's Gospel actually that first Christmas in these beautiful words, which I'm sure many of you are very familiar with, in John chapter 1, starting at verse 1. And he says this: "In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word," that's Jesus, "was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him. And nothing was created except through him. The Word," that's Jesus, "gave life to everything that was created. And his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it. God sent a man, John the Baptist, to tell about the light, so that everyone might believe because of his testimony. John himself was not the light. He was simply a witness to tell about the light. The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world." And I just love that passage because right there, right at the beginning of John's Gospel, he highlights something. The Word, that's Jesus, gave life to everything in verse 4. Jesus is the one that brings life. And he goes on and says his life brought light to everyone. And that light, he goes on in verse 5, that light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can't extinguish it. That's how powerful that light is. That's Jesus. Now, what do lights normally do? What does a light do? Well, it helps us to see more clearly. If we're in a dark room and we turn on a torch or light a match or whatever, suddenly we can start to see, and things get put into perspective, and we can navigate a pathway through wherever we're walking. We can see how to get from A to B. It gives clarity. Light also brings warmth. You know, we think of when at night time, when the sun comes out in the morning, it not only brings light, but it brings warmth with it. And the same as on a dark winter's day like today, you know, a fire like this brings light, but it also brings warmth. And with that warmth, it brings joy on a winter's day. It also enables growth in plants. You know, without the light, you know, plants wouldn't photosynthesize and they wouldn't be able to grow and flourish and be healthy. You know, sunlight is good for our health, isn't it? And that vitamin D, which is good for our bones and for our blood cells, and it brings health to us in the right balance, and it kind of lifts our spirits, doesn't it? You know, and some people, you know, struggle with not enough sunlight in the winter, and they actually sit under these, is it what they call sad lamps, I think, and it just, that light just helps. It does something to us, and lifts our spirits. And I find it interesting that when Jesus started his public ministry, after being that time 40 days in the wilderness, and then he came out of that, and in Matthew's gospel it tells us a really fascinating insight, and it says that after that experience, he says this fulfilled in Matthew chapter 4 and verse 14, this fulfilled what God said through the prophet Isaiah, in the land of Zebulun and Naphtali, beside the sea, beyond the Jordan River in Galilee, where so many Gentiles live, the people who sat in darkness has seen what? A great light. And for those who lived in the land where death casts its shadow, a light has shined. And I don't know about you, but I feel that verse actually really speaks to us today. It really does. You know, we live in turbulent, dark days of COVID. And people just don't know which way to turn. Our politicians are trying to do their best, but, you know, in reality, they haven't really got a clue. And people don't know who to believe or what to believe when they even hear the news. There's so much news or fake news going around. We don't actually know what is really truth. Our economy, which we're used to keep growing and just quietly becoming more prosperous, is suddenly shrinking, and it's kind of gone into reverse and into decline. This curse of COVID is casting a dark shadow across our land, and that the shadow of death, because we know, I'm sure all of us know people who either had near scrapes with it or sadly maybe even died. I certainly have taken a funeral earlier on in the year of someone who died of COVID. And so with it brings fear, it brings depression, it brings discouragement. But, you know, this is a different scenario. We kind of think that we're living in unique times, and yes, we are for our generation. But actually, Jesus came into a troubled world exactly the same 2,000 years ago, into a world that had that dark shadow of death cast over it. And he brought light and he brought life. And so I find it fascinating that in this year, where only, was it 4 days ago, the first time for 800 years, the Star of Bethlehem, or the Christmas star, where those two planets came close together and almost lined up. 800 years for the first time at night time, for 800 years, that actually here we are in this time in which we live, where we're reminded that into our dark world a great light has come, Jesus, that God has stepped into history. And he's given us this light that brings direction and clarity amongst all the confusion around us when we look to him for wisdom and guidance. That he enables us to grow and to flourish despite our circumstances, when we trust in him rather than trust in ourselves. And where this darkness exists, but the light extinguishes the darkness, and then with it brings joy to replace it, and takes away the confusion and the despair which is so prevalent in our world, and so often can seep into our own hearts and souls as well. So I don't know where you are this Christmas time, whether you're surrounded by family and in the best of spirits, or whether you're just feeling a little bit despondent. But let me encourage you to focus on the light that brings joy, the light that brings life, that light that brings health, because he is the one who is that Prince of Peace, Jesus, and he is the one that when he comes into our Christmas, he makes all the difference. Just like when we turn the light on in a dark room, or perhaps we turn the lights on our Christmas tree, it brings something, a different dimension into the room, which is hard to describe, but that is what Jesus does when we welcome him into our lives and into our Christmas. And whether you're a follower of Jesus or have been for many, many years, or whether perhaps you're just starting that journey, just come to him today and just welcome him in as that light. And I want to just maybe a response for all of us as we focus on that light. It's a response that Tim Hughes wrote in a song, which many of you, well, I'm sure will know, and it's a response I want to give from my heart, and I'm sure many of you want to echo it. When he wrote these words, "Light of the world, you stepped down into darkness, opened my eyes, let me see beauty that made this heart adore you, hope of a life spent with you. Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say that you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. King of all days, so highly exalted, glorious in heaven above, humbly you came to the earth you created, all for love's sake became poor." And what's the response? Here I am to worship. Here I am to bow down. Here I am to say, you're my God. You're altogether lovely, altogether worthy, altogether wonderful to me. I hope that's your response as we move into this Christmas day. So I want to just say, God bless you. Have a good Christmas. And I trust that you will know something of the light of life in your heart and in your soul this Christmas time. Thank you for joining me.